knew sign language. I could communicate in sign language, but I'd never had a conversation with someone other than my sign language teachers. And so after the event, the mother and her daughter came up to me, and the daughter and I signed a whole conversation together, which was mind-blowing and changed my life's path and made me attend college for speech pathology and audiology.
We love the San Gabriel Valley. There are some amazing people and businesses here, and we think they deserve the spotlight. Welcome to the SGV Master Key Podcast. We'll have on the people that make the SGV great. We'll find out what makes them tick, their ups and downs, their history, and we're going to have fun doing it. This is the SGV Master Key Podcast. And now your hosts, Scott Warmoth and Russell Mano.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode. For you, it's been a week, and for us, it has been 4 months. We haven't been in, that feels kind of odd, right? We haven't been in here for 4 months, Scott.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that long. But I did know it was at least 2 or 3 months, but wow, 4 months.
Yes. I think the first week of October was the first time. So October 5th maybe was the last time we were in here.
Wow, but we've had our shows running every week. We did a whole bunch of them before we left.
Yeah.
And so we had the whole holiday season.
Indeed. It's actually me who's leaving, right? So if the listeners, if you don't know, I leave to be with family for some time and then I come back. So we bulk record the show. But anyways, we're glad we're back. We have another special guest for you today. But before that, just want to remind you that we've partnered with San Gabriel Valley Now, your source for city news, announcements, events, special savings, and everything SGV. Check them out on Instagram, sgv.now, and read the SGV Now magazine on their website, sgvnow.com. Well, for the listener, if you don't know, our studio is located in San Gabriel, and Scott, you've been doing business in the San Gabriel Valley for 38 years, but your office has been here in San Gabriel since
2007.
2007, Monterey Park before then.
That's right.
And so in San Gabriel now, you've also been a member of the Chamber of Commerce here. Right? And we've had several guests from the Chamber on the show: Sandy Roscoe, Alexis Salamanca, Randy Sotomayor. And today we have another guest from the Chamber of Commerce. But before that, I'd like to get to a new segment of ours where these cards were actually developed and created by a guest who was on the show, a previous episode, Brian Taylor. The cards are like you, and they're just sort of icebreakers, if you will, right, to sort of get to know people. So we're going to draw one from here. And I believe these are available at Target.
And online, I remember he said.
Right.
He sells them online, but this is a game he created.
Yes. Yeah. So we're not getting paid for this in any way, but I find them, the questions quite interesting. So here we go. 2 questions. You can choose one to answer. Okay. Number 1, is your job fulfilling? Or if you had a warning label, what would it say?
If I had a warning label,
what would it say?
Well, that's a do not touch.
Okay.
Caution. It's a warning. No, I don't know. It would. You say warning, or the question is a warning signal, as if there is something to be aware of.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I come across as that hard. I don't know. What about you?
So I'm going to choose to answer the if you had a warning label one. I would say mine is a warning not driven by fear or not moved by fear. Yeah. And I don't know that that's so much of a warning, but like some people may approach others and believe that they can drive them or motivate them in that way. Like they just make that assumption. But that's what mine would say, I think. Yeah. So now
you put more thought into yours.
Yeah.
So now about to our guest, would you choose to answer, is your job fulfilling, or if you had a warning label, what would it say?
I would go with, is my job fulfilling? And I'd have to say wholeheartedly, yes. My job is not only my job, it's just my life career, my path. I enjoy seeing other people enjoy themselves. having a wonderful time.
Well, that's perfect because the way she describes herself and her job is I think, excellent.
Yes, absolutely. And
we haven't introduced her yet.
Yes. So today's guest is Dawnee Pitzer. She's an event producer who creates event experiences for people. Dawnee, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Scott and Russell.
So we started the show, and this show is the SGV, Master Key Podcast. What is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
So I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley. I grew up in little old Alhambra.
Okay.
And I grew up until I was in, even in high school. I went to Schur High School for the first 2 years, and later on went to the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. I left for years to go to school on the East Coast, work for a couple years, and eventually came back. And now I live here in the San Gabriel Valley, work here in the San Gabriel Valley, and this is what I call home.
That's interesting. That's been the experience for several of our guests to grow up here, leave, and then eventually make their way back. I know that's a little farther in your life's journey, but what brought you back?
You know, I think aging parents, that was one of the big things. I wanted to be with them who are still in Alhambra and still in the house that I grew up in, but also the weather. Living on the East Coast where it would snow for multiple months a year wasn't necessarily perfect conditions for this Southern California 75-degree weather kind of person. So that's...
So you went to high school for the arts.
I did.
And where did you then go back east?
I went to a community college actually in the Berkshires of Massachusetts to establish residency so that I could later transfer to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst.
At Amherst, yeah. Yeah, I've been in that area. It is quite beautiful.
It's gorgeous. The fall foliage, when we always see a couple tree-lined streets down here driving through the San Gabriel Valley. We're like, oh, that street is gorgeous. But the entire hillsides are covered with orange, red, yellow trees in the fall, and it's just stunning. It's for us Southern California SGV people who see these so much concrete and parks with trees and a couple trees here and there on streets, but when you go and you just live in almost what we probably would call like the wilderness, which it's really not, with just such lush mountains, it's incredible.
So your interest in arts, what did you study at the high school? What was it that you were interested in?
I was in the theater department. It was an audition based process to be allowed into the school, even though it was a public school. So I was in theater. I wanted to become an actress. I wanted to be in front of the screen. And in the early 90s, there just weren't any roles for people who looked like me. And so that vision changed, and it completely went a whole different direction in high school when I started learning sign language. And that's something I performed with a choir. I also sang growing up. I performed with a choir, and I would translate the songs in sign language for the guests attending whatever event it was. And it wasn't until I was signing the song, Let There Be Peace on Earth and Let It Begin With Me, it was just always this, at the end of every performance, that's the song we ended with. And I was, that's just how every performance went. And when I was signing that song at this one particular event, a woman pushed a little 5 or 6 year old girl up to the front of the stage facing us, and the girl started signing back to me, which was mind-blowing because I knew sign language. I could communicate in sign language, but I'd never had a conversation with someone other than my sign language teachers. And so after the event, the mother and her daughter came up to me, and the daughter and I signed a whole conversation together, which changed my life's path and made me attend college for speech pathology and audiology, which is completely different than what I'm doing right now. But teaching people how to speak again, communicating with them in sign language. I thought I wanted to go into deaf studies, but I realized speech pathology and audiology was just more meaningful for me. And so that's what I went to school for years.
Well, how did you get into that? Because you were studying sign language in high school.
Yes.
What led you to do that?
What led me to speech pathology? Just understanding how I could communicate with a population that had difficulty communicating, not necessarily the deaf community, but people with speech problems, people with hearing problems. And so I went to school at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and came back to Southern California, to Cal State Northridge, and finished multiple master's degrees in special education, educational therapy, and I got a master's of teaching in autism, actually, which is completely unrelated to what I do.
Wow, yeah, I hear all these things that you've studied and trained for, and they're completely separate from what you're doing today.
Absolutely. And then years into my career, I had a private educational therapy practice here in the San Gabriel Valley, very successful, but working with these clients with special needs who needed educational therapy services, many on the autism spectrum, many in the special needs community, all in the special needs community, I would attend school district meetings that are called IEPs, individual educationalized programs, which help create, are there to create services for students with special needs. And I was attending so many of these meetings. It was so stressful. It was so overwhelming to try to fight for services for students. I mean, I was fighting for students in the 8th grade who didn't know basic sight words and were in general education. I was fighting for, 6th graders who barely could read anything on a page. And I was so stressed out. It took such a toll on my body that I got the shingles. And who under the age of, 50 or 60 do you know have the shingles? And my doctor at the time was like, you need to do something that doesn't stress you out. And as much as I love these kids, that population, I needed to find something that was 100% enjoyable for me and 100% rewarding for me. And one day I helped a friend of mine plan the reception for the repast for her grandmother's funeral. And it was an astounding event. And people were so gracious. And somehow that morphed within a week to planning weddings. I don't even know how that that happened.
Oftentimes I'm looking or listening for the thread that a listener can really, that resonates with them, that they can say something like, oh, that's me, and I wasn't sure what that was here, but so many people that must resonate with so many people, right? Like being unhappy with what they're doing, and it takes great courage to leave that all behind. I mean, you didn't just invest some time. It was time, money, energy, years, in fact, in training to leave that behind.
It was absolutely years. And for years, I did both careers. I was an educational therapist. I still held my educational therapy practice when I started my event planning business. And I continued that until I knew I want to say 100% successful in this new creative world that I'm in. I had made enough contacts. I had been in the industry enough. And don't get me wrong, the educational therapy and the special needs community, amazing. But it also has a high, people who work with special needs are incredible. There's a high turnover rate, and this was something where I got to share with everybody what I could do to a space, what I could do to their event, and truly make it an experience.
Yeah, I'll bet that your background made you a better event planner and better equipped to create that experience that you talk about.
Absolutely.
For people.
Absolutely. There's a skill that people, I want to say should have or could have called executive function. It's the ability to plan, execute, and follow through with tasks.
Wow, you're speaking Russell's language here.
And with executive function, that's one of the skills that I taught my learners with special needs years ago. And what I realized is that is the major skill that I use today. I would not be able to plan, execute, follow through on all these tasks, make this experience something that is mind-blowing to these guests without those skills. So that former career of mine helped build the foundation for what I'm currently doing and what I'll do, I'm sure, for the rest of my life.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. There's so many directions that we could go into. I kind of want to go back to something that's on my mind, because you said you grew up in Alhambra, but you went to Shore.
I did.
Where is Shore?
Shore's in Montebello.
Oh. My mother worked for the Montebello School District for something like 32 years.
Oh, okay.
And she had me go to Shore High School. Prior to that, I went to Macy Intermediate in Monterey Park.
Right across from Inez.
Yes, right. In. And so...
Is that still there?
Macy?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It was like right across the street. We would see the kids playing in their playground from Inez.
On Inez, isn't there also a junior high? Or is that the only school on Inez?
I think only Inez is on Inez.
So Macy is actually near...
It's on Garvey. And McFerrin.
That is a different school, actually.
Oh.
Macy is over off of Garfield and Riggin, kind of on Lupin.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
but that school is also called Macy.
Oh, it
when
is?
I was there, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it moved.
Maybe it moved.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I went to Macy Intermediate.
You went to Macy also?
No, I went to Inez.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we would always, I believe it was Catholic, because they wore uniforms, and so we would always see them and wonder, because we don't know what's going on over there, but we just see that they're in uniforms.
Yeah, when I went there in the late 80s, actually, I graduated from Macy in 1990. It was a public school. We didn't wear uniforms. It was, and then most of the kids who went there went to Shore High School, and that's where I had to go because that's where all my friends are going.
I see. Okay, sorry. Thank you for clearing that up for me. Dawnee, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
Today I brought with me a picture of my little family, and
Oh, nice.
this is my family. Actually, we were in Hawaii for the last event that I did there. We are a traveling family. We love to go out of the country. We actually haven't been out of the country since COVID, but we go out of the country at least once, if not 2 times a year. My family, all of us go together, or sometimes my husband and I just go, or sometimes my daughter and I just go. I think the last trip that I went on was my daughter and I in Italy. And we met up with my parents there. And so we love to travel. I thought about an object that was just so meaningful to me. And because I couldn't bring my whole family into the studio, I just decided to bring something that represented us and where we like to be, which is out in the world, learning about other people, learning about other cultures, trying other foods, something like, everything like that. So that's
a beautiful
what I brought.
picture.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. But yeah, that's...
So for the listening audience,
I was going to say.
So this is like on canvas. It looks like you had it professionally taken, because it's a shot taken of your family, but the photographer is behind you, and you're looking out onto what looks like a reef, and it looks very tropical. Like you're wearing
a lei.
Plumerian, the hair.
Yes.
And my husband's wearing a lei, and yeah, we were on the northern coast of Oahu in Turtle Bay, looking out at the ocean, at the reef. So that's all of us dreaming about living on a deserted island maybe one day.
Beautiful, thank you. So can we get back to to develop shingles, and that be the catalyst to sort of pursue something else? But you said you sort of stuck in that profession for some time. How long did you stay there, and when did you finally make the jump to go full time, and what was that like?
I stayed in, I kept my practice as an educational therapist for, I started in the educational therapy community in 95 in college, and I started to leave it in 2017, 2018, and I was completely done by 2020. And yet I started my event planning business in 2007. So I was doing double duty for a very long time and managing the daytime educational therapy clients during the day and the events in the evenings and the weekends.
Would you say that rather than completely leaving the stress behind, that you found something that sort of mitigated that brought you joy?
I mean, I have to say educational therapy brought me joy. Seeing readers that had never read before read a paragraph, a sentence, a word was very rewarding. But the stress of everything that surrounded it was difficult. And here, what brings me joy all the time is planning the event from beginning to end, getting to know a client or a group of clients, understanding what they want, especially when it's a social event. Social events are very different from corporate and nonprofit events. And just getting to know people and what they want and making their vision become a reality, making their vision actually blow their minds and bringing it to a completely different level they had never expected.
What are the kinds of events that you do? And what are your favorite types of events?
So I started off as a wedding planner. So I do a lot of social events, meaning milestone birthdays, anniversaries. But when I met and I first walked into the Chamber of Commerce, I started to do corporate events and nonprofit events. And I have a huge heart for these nonprofit organizations, especially what some of them stand for. So I would say I do the social events, corporate events, and nonprofit events. And just in the last year, I started doing events in the entertainment industry.
Wow.
And what kind of events are, you mentioned social, you mentioned corporate, nonprofit, entertainment. What sorts of events are these? Dinners? Are they sort of get-togethers?
Usually they're celebrations. The nonprofits usually have an annual gala that they bring all of their supporters and their friends and their community partners to a location, and whether they give awards or they install board members or just recognize their organization for the work that they've done in the last year. So and you asked about my favorite events. My favorite events
and least favorite.
Okay, so my favorite events are events where the clients just trust me. My least favorite, and I'll elaborate that on that in a second. My least favorite events are when the clients want to say in every single move I make, and I'm just and in the end, everything I suggested they went with. They're like, "Oh, okay, we should have trusted you in the beginning. Just give me a little bit of trust. Know that this is a representation of myself as much as it is you. So I'm going to do an outstanding job so that you look good." So my most favorite events, as I said, is when I really have creative control. Like, give me the vision, give me the ideas that you have, give me what you're trying to go for, and just trust me with the vision and the execution, the production of it from there.
What's an example of one that you have done that meets that?
Okay, so last year, the Grammys were in Las Vegas, and I did a pre-Grammy brunch for an organization based in New York called Black Women in Media. And they asked me to do their pre-Grammy brunch celebration, and they called me about 3 weeks before it started. And I don't even think we were confirming things until like a week and a half before.
Wow.
And they just trusted me with the vision. I was like, what do you, they had, it was an incredible event, well attended, star-studded, and looked amazing. It looked amazing. Red carpet, floral walls, chandeliers, everything. And people walked in and they were wowed. So that was probably...
And you were in charge of that.
I was in charge of that, and I was given 3 weeks notice.
Yeah, wow.
Which, I mean, I tell people I can do an event in 2 or 3 weeks, but don't make me. Give me a little bit more time. So they just really trusted me with the event. From, as I said, the creation of the whole space, which was at the House of Blues in Mandalay Bay, to last minute ordering the swag bags the actual bags that all the sponsors donated their products to. So, yeah, just trust me. Once you have the vision, and if you don't have a vision, let's talk about it. You know, I want to know who you are. Like if it's a birthday party. I've had many people come to me. I had a woman come to me a couple of years ago, and I was like, she was having a 60th birthday party. I was like, okay, what do you want? What do you want it to look like? She's like, I don't know. I trust you. And that's all she gave me. And I was like, okay, you got to give me a color. You got to give me a something. And finally she's like, I like dark green. And we did it. So usually I need a little bit more than that, but I can create it from scratch. And that's why I'm an event producer. I produce the whole event. I don't just plan it. I don't just design it. I you know, in addition to calling in, getting together multiple vendors, which are florists, bartenders, servers, etc., I produce the whole event. I make it happen.
Would I be correct in assuming that the least favorite is where the client tries to produce it themselves?
Yes. Like the reason I do what I do, and I've been doing it for 14 years, is because I've been successful, you know? And yeah, when they're like asking me about every single step or telling me all the things that they want done, that's different from what will flow smoothly, what I believe will flow smoothly. Like, I don't know. Do they need me there? I'm not sure.
Can you see the overlap here, Scott, in vision, getting there, you know, execution, and allowing the person to do it rather than, you know, there's so much overlap in business, and a lot of things. I would say is, you know, if you have the vision from the client and you're trusted to execute it, let you execute it.
Just let me do it.
Well, it's that trust. Yeah.
Otherwise, the client is actually doing it, and you're just sort of.
Yeah, like you hired me for a reason. Let's fully use me to my best ability, and I can do an incredible job.
Was it smooth sailing from the start in this venture for you?
It was definitely a big learning curve. I did go back to school to become to get certificates in meeting and event planning, because I was like, hey, I've built my life on, you know, bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in another field, like formal education. I value formal education, and that is important to me. You know, I think it's as important as in the field experience, you know, that you have to have a balance between that to understand how to navigate through life, to be a good, you know, to be a good business owner, to be a good professional. So finding the balance between that book smarts and street smarts is what I knew I had to do. So I did go back to school and got those certificates to make sure that I was doing things within this field. You know, I didn't just jump into the field and be like, I'm a wedding planner. No, that's not, you know, or I'm an event planner. That's not how it went. I needed some formal education for that. So that's, you know, something that I value is just the education behind it. Sometimes
the most horrible things that have happened in, you know, any endeavor end up being your biggest teachers. Have you had any of those events, you know, go wrong where you look back and you're like, okay, I'm never going to do that again? And I'm asking mostly for the listener who may be interested in pursuing this. What are those things that have occurred?
I think one of the biggest things that I've occurred where I'm like, I'm never doing that again, is working with vendors who don't carry along or don't hold the same level of professionalism that I do. I always come to my current clients with a list of preferred vendors, and those particular people or companies are preferred vendors because they have shown incredible professionalism. You know, they've come through. They've shown up when they needed to show up. They've bent over backwards or whatever. And I always tell my clients, you don't have to use these people that I recommend, but I recommend them because they have a proven track record with me to do outstanding. And that's what I want. So the instances where I'm like, ooh, I'm never going to do that, a lot of times it's related to like working with a person or a company that wasn't as professional as I need them to be.
Mm. I imagine that's challenging if you have, let's say, 5-10 vendors and they all sort of represent you and and their reflection on you, right?
And like my biggest thing with all of the vendors, with all of the clients, and this holds true from my previous career, is to build rapport. Get to know these people, these vendors, take care of these vendors as if like they're my own family. You know, take care of this new client as if they're my own family. Treat them the way I would want my family and friends to be treated. So the utmost professionalism, the utmost kindness, that's what I want to share with anybody who I come across. That's important to me.
So if I remember correctly, I think you said you went fully into this in 2020, or is it 2018?
I think I had one last educational therapy client left in 2020 and even 2018. So I was really transitioning and making a push to do this full time, even though, as I said, I did my first event at the end of 2007. So really that double duty was very strong in my life. Was very, it was a big presence doing both things and being able to manage, having the executive function skills to manage both careers and complete all the things that I needed to do for both sets of clients.
So I want to get into that process, leaving one thing behind and fully diving into here, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Wormuth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Dawnee. During the break, Scott had brought something up that I also had a question about, but I wasn't sure how to bring that in. But I'll let you bring that in, Scott.
Yeah, going back to something you had said earlier, Dawnee, talking about your first passion seemed to have been the arts or the theater. You wanted to go into the theater, but you discovered that there wasn't much place for somebody who looked like you.
Right.
And I was wondering what you meant by that. It's also a little bit helpful for those that can't even see you. There might be people just listening on a podcast. But yeah, I didn't know what you meant by that.
Okay. So for those of you who can't see me right now, I am Indonesian and Polynesian and a tad bit of Senegalese based on my Ancestry DNA results. Thank you very much.
Okay, never would have guessed that.
So it's exotic.
I am exotic. Look. I am brown skin. I have slanted eyes. I look, when I travel to different places, I always get different things. When I went to Indonesia, they're like, you're not quite Indonesian. I feel like there's almost two different ethnic groups within Indonesia, with two different physical features of ethnic groups that live in Indonesia. They're the Indonesians that emigrated from China who look more lighter skinned, and then there are the more southern Indonesians who are darker skinned and rounder faces. And so I'm the rounder face. I've got the Polynesian in me. So I go to places like South America and they're like, aloha. And I'm like, you're close. I get mistaken for Filipino all the time. When I see Polynesians, they're like, we're not, you're something, you're kind of close to us, but we're not sure. Yeah. And then I'm like, I'm Indonesian and Polynesian being Samoan and Maori, Tongan. And I say, I'm also Indonesian. They're like, hello, sister. And then they embrace me once they know. They're like, we know you're something. So,
do you know what is the predominant?
Indonesian.
Okay.
So I am approximately 70%, a little over 70% Indonesian, about 20-some% Polynesian, and then 3% Senegalese. I was actually adopted when I was 2 months old. So I was born in Indonesia, and I came here at 2 months, and I was adopted by an American Caucasian family here in Alhambra. And so like understanding my race or seeing people who look like me growing up, I never saw anybody. I went to school, as I said, in Monterey Park, Alhambra, Montebello, and we had a lot of like Chinese and Japanese first generation families. We had a lot of Mexican American first generation, but I noticed a lot of them were lighter skinned than me. And so I was the little brown girl in, and so growing up wanting to be an actress in the early 90s in high school, actually, in the 90s in high school, I did not see any Indonesian, Polynesian faces on TV at all. So it's hard for you it was hard for you to really feel that you could go on to that kind of career because you didn't see role models. Is that what it was? Absolutely. No, I didn't see role models. Even my cohorts who were, my friends in school who were Chinese and Japanese and Mexican, we didn't see any role models in mainstream media. Didn't see anybody who looked like us at all.
Is there a role model for you now?
A role model
that you have seen?
I don't know if I could say I have a specific role model, but I'm drawn to people of mixed race because, like me, we're a little ambiguous. We're not sure what we are, and that was everybody's issue or thing with me. They weren't sure what I was until they asked.
Did you feel you were an outsider?
I definitely felt like I was an outsider. I had a great group of friends through school, which was wonderful. And like I bounced around to like the Asian groups and the Mexican groups and the Black groups, and everybody embraced me. They were all very kind to me. And that may not have been because of my race, probably just my outgoing, extroverted personality. But so I feel like I had a very multicultural upbringing, and that was important for me. And so moving to the East Coast, where it was less diverse, was probably one of the best things I could have done for myself, to know that not every place is like the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah.
That was an eye-opener for sure. I had never been in a place where the majority of the population was the majority of the United States. That was new to me. So that was something that I was like, wow, it is not diverse everywhere. There are places where there were two minorities, and I was shocked.
I was going to ask you if you could guess what I am, but I think you listened to my episode, so you may
I did.
already know.
I did.
But I don't know if I shared this on my episode, but when I was in basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky, I met white people and Black people who had never seen, like white people had never seen a Black person in their life, and a Black person had never seen a white person in their life. I was stunned. I could not believe it.
I met a girl like that who went to the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. She came from Wisconsin, and she had seen one Black sitcom growing up, and she didn't think it was real, and she had never seen Black people before she moved to Los Angeles. And that was shocking to me.
Well, that whole story cleared up a lot of my wondering, you're not just the way you look, but also the way you're speaking. Because I've been around enough people, or even if they don't have an accent, they still have a certain way of talking that I can identify another way, right? But I was really struggling here. Because it's not just
you said, an ambiguous look.
I'm definitely a mystery to everybody. I get, and I don't think no one in my life has ever guessed Indonesian on the first try, for sure.
Yeah, certainly Polynesian seems would be the most likely guess, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I get a lot of, are you Filipino? That's what I've gotten for many, many years.
But that only explains the look. But there's still the way that her being was unusual to me until I understood or learned that she was adopted, right? Because you could figure out the look and you say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But then you still have to go more into the story to figure out why is it that you speak like this, your mannerisms and all that. So do you consider yourself American?
As somebody who was adopted into a completely different other culture, from a culture that to this day I don't know a lot about. I've done my research, I've learned about it, I've met people who are Indonesian, Polynesian. Like I feel like I've always wanted to hold on to that part of me, that Indonesian part. I've called myself Americanized versus American for so many years because I think that part of me wanted to still be Indonesian. Right. So, so I always call myself Americanized, you know, and I tell people my story. I tell them that like I wasn't born here. Although the other day I was at an event with the Indonesian Consul General, and I went up to him and I was like, hi, I wanted to introduce myself. It's such a pleasure to meet you. And he immediately started talking to me in Indonesian. And I was like, oh, I'm a fake Indonesian. I'm just kidding. He's like, no, you're not. You're a fake. I was like, okay. I was like, I can speak other languages, just not Indonesian. So yeah, I still want to hold on to that, being Indonesian, being Polynesian. But yeah, I've always used the term Americanized.
What does Americanized mean?
Meaning, to me, it means I've like assimilated into the culture. Like, whether it's like the American diet, the American way, the having way too many shoes in my closet, having way too many material
No,
things.
that is Philippines. That's Philippines.
So,
was there any Imelda Marcos? Is that
yes,
it? Okay.
it was. So, but yeah, just.
Did you know that she had a home right over here in Pasadena?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not know that either.
Well, I hope that's true. If anybody's going to fact check it. But
Yeah.
Well, you know, thank you so much for sharing all that, and I'm glad the listener and people who are going to hear this can learn that about you, and I'm so thankful that Scott thought to go back to that one question. So we're going to move on to a segment of the show where we get to know something else about you, but in a little bit different way.
Dawnee, this is the SGV3 portion where we get to talk about your favorites in the San Gabriel Valley, whether it's restaurants or experiences that you're into, places. What are the things in the San Gabriel Valley that stick out to you? Three events or places.
Okay, so I love going to Blossom Market Hall. Have you guys been there? The Blossom Market Hall over in San Gabriel. It's
Twice.
Twice. Okay, so I feel like I live there sometimes. They have 13 different food vendors, all different types of food. They also have an event space upstairs, which I do events at a lot. But I love going there because I could have like something from one vendor, something from another vendor. But Blossom Market Hall, they have incredible minority-owned, female-owned restaurants that you definitely can find something that you like there.
Yeah, that's a new place, relatively speaking. So a lot of people probably aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, so it is over in the Mission District of San Gabriel. It's owned by a wonderful couple here who is local to this area. It used to be a Masonic lodge back in, since the 40s or something. I'm probably not right with that date, but it was a Masonic lodge for years. And then they bought it, gutted it, kept a couple different things. Like they have some original seats there that are from the Masonic lodge that was, and then redesigned it to house these 13 different vendors, from like Caribbean Gourmet to Manduyo to like brand new Piccadilly Grace, who just reopened. There are some amazing food vendors out there. So definitely, I love going there. I love the people who work there, and just doing events there is wonderful. That's one of my favorite places in the San Gabriel Valley, which everyone should go check it out. So,
would you describe it as a food hall?
It's definitely a food hall. All those choices. So, food hall with event space. They have a little outdoor dining area, plenty of parking. It shares a parking lot with a San Gabriel Mission Playhouse, which brings me to my second favorite place, is over next door at the Grapevine Arbor, which is a little open air like park, I guess. It's an enclosed park where growing up, I used to do dance, ballet, and tap performances at the San Gabriel Mission Playhouse. And afterwards, my mom would have us run around in the Grapevine Arbor Park.
Where is that?
It's on the corner of Mission and Santa Anita. And you'll just see, like, And you'll just see the old rustic walls on the corner of those streets, right across from, right next door to the Mission Playhouse. So the Mission Playhouse, and then you have the fountain. Then you have some rooms here, and right here inside, you have to go in through some gates to the Grapevine Arbor Park, and that's where we do a lot of weddings, nonprofit event galas, nonprofit event board member installations. It's just incredible, and it has a grapevine arbor. It has like a wooden trellis with grapes growing over there at the right season, and it's just so serene. And I meet clients there sometimes just because it's a nice open space, and I just do. I have a lot of events there, so it's just so serene, and to sit underneath on these little wooden benches with these grapes cascading overhead.
Wow.
Is it just a couple of blocks in terms of size? A couple of square blocks, or is it even that big?
It's not even that big. The Grapevine Arbor is just I would say it's I relate everything to how many tables and chairs can fit.
Yeah.
So at most you can fit 20 round tables. That's like 200 guests. So that's how I relate everything to as far as size.
So it's just a little sort of a corner neighborhood park type of thing.
And it's open to the public, and it's just so serene. I just love the feeling of not being in the city.
Is this the entrance?
That is the entrance.
Wow. Do you recognize that? I recognize that.
It's a city property, and
you can just go in there?
You can just go in there. During the day, 9 to 5-ish. Yeah.
So I've driven by that
million
hundreds
times.
Of times.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow, I had no idea. Okay. I never would have guessed that I could have gone through those doors, though.
Those doors aren't typically open. It's usually a side door that's open. I mean, I think they use one of the rooms just adjacent as like the senior center where they do senior lunches, and another room houses like monthly meetings for organizations like the San Gabriel Women's Foundation and stuff like that. So like it's a whole corner of city-owned property, but as far as doing events there, the staff is incredible, the city staff is incredible, and just a dream to work with.
How old is that grapevine?
It's old.
That's old.
It's old.
Wow.
So that's sometimes where I go to sit and be quiet, and you can hear the cars going by, but you're kind of just enclosed in this little serene space. And that's what I need sometimes.
Yeah.
Nice. I definitely want to go see that. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, and one of my favorite restaurants, as you asked, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mandarin Noodle House on Garvey. It's in Monterey Park.
Oh, it's Garvey and Atlantic.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's little orange with like green.
Yeah, it's a freestanding building in a parking lot.
It is. It's
I know that.
And I remember,
You must know that.
yeah.
Somebody mentioned it once too on the
I
show.
know.
Yeah.
This is the second time someone's mentioned it.
So that means if it's mentioned 2 times and you haven't been there, you've got to head over there.
Well, I used to go there in 1984.
I used to go there in 1984 too.
Is that right?
I did. I grew up. I don't know how I stumbled upon it. I think we had to eat one day after school or something like that. It was a shortened day, and my mom and my brother and myself, my dad was at work. We just stumbled into it, and we just started going there. We ordered the same 3 things.
Dumplings and noodles.
Pan-fried meat dumplings, thin onion green pancake, and beef noodle soup with handmade noodle. I remember going there, and it was family owned.
Yeah,
like they recognized us. And to this day, I go there, it's still the same family.
Is that right?
It is
it's still open and still owned by the same family.
Right. And I don't know if it's their manager or it's like the son. His name is Denny. He's amazing. And you walk in and he recognizes you and he's like, hey, how are you doing? There's not a lot of seating in there. We've taken it to go so many times, but I've made it a point to sit in there and, just.
Oh, yeah.
But,
wow. That brings back a lot of memories.
Absolutely. So I've been going there since, I want to say I was 1984, 1987.
Have you been going there sense when you could go to Thrifty and get an ice cream for $0.25?
That's not the Thrifty that I went to.
Oh,
I went to a different one in Alhambra. But yes, I remember Thrifties. Oh my gosh, I'm dating myself.
You know, they still sell Thrifty ice cream
Yes. They
do.
somewhere. I don't know what the name
At
of the
Rite Aid.
place is.
Rite Aid.
At
Oh,
Rite
at
Aid.
Rite Aid?
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. You see how Scott just lit up when you start talking about food?
Yeah.
So
Well, boy, I need some noodles and dumplings right now. I could tell you.
Exactly.
And some Thrifty ice cream.
I know.
Well, Dawn, what's in store next for your business?
What's in store next? You know what? This last year I spent time meeting new staff members. I would say interviewing new staff members, and I employ them all part-time, which is wonderful. But I would like to move to the point where I'm employing at least some of them full-time. We're growing, expanding, doing bigger events here in in the San Gabriel Valley, here in Southern California, all the way over to New York and Florida. So I need a solid team, which I have them. They're great, but I just want to be able to have them on full time. So yeah, as I said, my support staff is amazing and I need them with me all the time. So
Where exactly are you based? Are you
I'm home
based?
I'm home based. I'm home based here in San Gabriel Valley. So, but yeah, and I travel a lot.
And you have an event with us coming up.
I do. March 23rd at the San Gabriel Hilton. I'm really looking forward to that. Tell me more about this event, because I know we've only talked about it briefly.
Well, I think we'll have to connect again soon away from the show to discuss that. But Dawnee, thank you so much for being on the show. How can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about or use your services?
They can reach out to me on Instagram at Events by Dawnee, and Dawnee is spelled Dawnee. So that's Events by Dawnee. You can also email me at Dawnee@eventsbydawnee.com. And you can head over to the website, eventsbydawnee.com, and submit a request to email me, or my contact information is right there also.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I really look forward to seeing the event that you end up producing for this.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Scott and Russell.
Well, there you go. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode. We hope you enjoyed that. As always, like, share, and subscribe. You can find all of our back catalog on our website, sgvmasterkey.com. And until next week, we'll see you soon.
You've been listening to the SGV Master Key Podcast. Our passion is the small businesses and the people that make up the San Gabriel Valley, and it's our honor to have them on the show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, rate, and review. The show is produced by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on the SGV Master Key Podcast.
Mother, no, kind of mother.